Martins, your host of the day. We have a lot to pack into an hour and a half. But John, who is on the tech side of things, and I will guide you through this time together. Please, 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 guys, note your questions and comments in the chat box so that we don't miss out on your contribution. And remember, always on mute, please. For the speakers, we will keep your time for you and give you a countdown, so don't worry. Let us just give a couple of more minutes for, I see some people are struggling to get in, for the others to join, and then we'll continue shortly. Thank you. Homelessness Network's first webinar of 2025. I'm Ilse Martins. I'm joined on the tech side by John Hopkins. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Raymond, who is the chairperson from the National Homelessness Network, to just tell us a little bit more about the National Homelessness Forum.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you can hear me clearly. So I'm Raymond Perrier. I'm the director of the Dennis Hurley Centre, which is based in Durban. And because we hosted the most recent National Homeless Conversation, I have the role of being chair until the next National Homeless Conversation. So many of you were involved in that conversation, which took place in Durban back in November. So that gives you a good sense of what the purpose of the National Homeless Network is. It's a way of bringing together individuals, organizations, academics, government officials, and most importantly, people with a lived experience of homelessness, bringing them together to discuss some of the key issues related to homelessness. Obviously, the plan or the intention is to share ideas, to share experiences, to do so in a way which enables us to work together, both working together within cities and working together across cities. So we have representatives from all of the main municipalities around the country, all the main metropolitans around the country, and some smaller cities as well. Altogether, we have, I think, over 30 organizations who are logged with us as members, and we had over 200 people registered for the national conversation that took place in November, including over 100 people with lived experience of homelessness. And I'm hoping that we do have within the group today people with lived experience of homelessness, people with lived experience of addiction, because it's very important that that they are also part of this conversation. The next National Homeless Conversation will take place in Cape Town at the beginning of November. The first time we've held it in person in Cape Town. We had a virtual one in Cape Town during COVID, but this will be one in person. We're giving you enough notice now so that you can plan your travel and plan to be down there. And in between times, we are planning these quarterly webinars. So this one now in February, and then there'll be another one in May, and then another one in August. I think that's right. And each one will be on a different theme. We'll be very keen to hear from you, themes that you want. So please use the chat box to put any ideas of themes that you want for these quarterly webinars, or indeed speakers that you would recommend. There may be people already within our network. There may be people from outside our network that you believe we could all benefit from hearing. So please use the chat, and we can capture that and have a look at that afterwards. You should already be getting, if you're here because you received an email from me, that means we already have your email address. If you're here and you didn't receive an email from me, then we have your email because you've registered. So we'll add you to our circulation list and make sure that we keep you informed about future events. We do have a website. It needs a bit of tidying up, so I apologize that that's work in progress. But if you Google National Homeless Network, you will get to our page on the homeless.org website and read a bit more about us. So great to have you. Oh, and the network is run by a core group. The core group consists of 1 or 2 members from each metropolitan area, and we gather together once a month to touch base with each other. And our role in turn is to connect with the other people in our own cities. So if you're in a city and you're not hearing anything from your core group member, then drop me a line. I'll tell you who your core group member is, and then you can be in touch with them. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Captain, my captain. Raymond, you are a rock star, as always. And so now we are moving on to our other rock stars on the call. And that's the reason why we are here today. We are so lucky to have phenomenal experts with us today. First, we got Dr. David Hein. Dr. Dave is based in Lancaster. Am I saying it correctly? Ooh, here comes the pastor. He's got a list as long as my arm. There's my arm. In terms of qualifications, he's a teacher and a pastor. He wrote books on addiction, designed curriculums for schools with high-risk students. It's absolutely amazing. He trained social workers and other professionals, as well as established a local ministry here in Fish Hoek in Cape Town that focuses on those with addiction. He works internationally. His work has taken him also to all different states in the US. He has worked in prisons. He has worked on the streets. He has trained churches and communities in how to respond appropriately to the addiction pandemic. He has counseled individuals and groups. He is a podcaster. He is a writer of note. Indeed, he is the complete package. And then we have Mr. Maleka. He is a clinical associate with a very strong background in community-oriented primary care. He is a postgraduate. He has a postgraduate diploma in social and behavioral studies and is currently pursuing a master's in the public health sector. And his focus includes occupational health, public health interventions, and health promotion strategies. Mr. Maleka is at COSAP in Tshwane, where he works directly with marginalized populations, particularly people experiencing homelessness. And he is also have a keen interest in public health policies, program evaluation, and the role of community-based interventions. So, Mr. Maleka, I hope you've got in already, but welcome. And then last but not least, we have Ronnie Nadir. He has completed studies in theology and addiction counseling and has accumulated 25 years of experience in addiction and recovery field. He is the founder of the Restoration Addiction Discipleship Program, otherwise known as RAD, which has been incorporated into the MES family. Drawing from his personal experience as a former addict, he is dedicated to assisting others in overcoming their self-destructive behaviors. Currently, he serves as the coolest, aside from me, branch manager of MES Kaberga branch and will oversee the national implementation of the addiction program throughout all MES branches. So, welcome to all the speakers. We can't wait to hear from you. We can't wait to learn from you and sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. So, Dr. Dave, over to you, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Hopefully, Ilse, you are Yes, you are prepared to do my slideshow for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not a big multitasker, except inside my brain. So this slide just introduces our work and contact information for me. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. Um, you hear our work called A to D, you hear it called From Addict to Disciple. And it focuses around, and I'll just hold the book up that you can see briefly if I can get into focus. Not too well today. There we go. So the book is called From Ashes to Destiny. Next slide. And it's on 4 phases in the book. The first phase covers steps 1, 2, and 3 of the 12 steps. And so we focus on powerlessness and where do you find power to find recovery and how do you surrender to that power. The second phase, which is the meat of the book, really digs into the heart of an addict and how they find inner healing. Third phase looks at moral regeneration and character development. And I always, as I'm working with guys, will say, just because you get clean and sober doesn't mean you know how to respect women. So we need to, focus on how do we live a life that fits into society and back into our families. And then the fourth phase, we work on that reintegration, and we call it walking in freedom. It's how do you handle daily battles that are going to continue going on and walk in your destiny, not just walk clean and sober. Okay, next slide. And we say we are a cognitive behavioral treatment model. But really we're not the classic ones by note because, and you'll see as we go on, we really are focused on that second dot there, identifying the emotional heart wound, which resulted in self-medication to find healing. So if we go up to the first dot, so we talk about dis-ease versus disease of addiction. What is the dis-ease going on inside of you? We talk about what is the counterfeit comforter that you've used to numb your pain, to escape your reality and create a fantasy life that works, but just like counterfeit money, isn't spendable anywhere and comes with potential consequences. And we talk about the Russian dolls. And so those are our dolls that nest together and you open them up. And so the outer doll being behavior. We all meet people as people who work in addiction or work in homelessness because of their behavior. And very often behavioral modification treatment starts there and stops there. And lots of addiction treatment starts there and stops there. But what we say is if you open up the doll and go down to the next layer, you find a smaller doll that is feelings. And our feelings control our behaviors. Think about it, whether you've ever been an addict or not. Your feelings, your emotions control your behaviors that you do. Then we open up the doll again, because inside the feelings doll is our thoughts. And you notice how they're getting smaller. And the truth is the thoughts that we have going on control our emotions or influence our emotions, which then influence our behaviors. And we open up the thoughts doll and we get a smaller one, which is the beliefs doll. And very often, if you're working in a spiritual setting, if you're working in a faith-based setting, the word is, find your identity in Christ. If you're Christian, focus on your religious roots and your beliefs, and that will set you right. But I found over and over again, and I've been working in the field for 30 years, I found over and over again, that isn't enough, because this wound that I talk about, this emotional wound, there's a little doll inside, which one of those wounds actually becomes our core value. So in my case, it was rejection from the womb, which resulted in beliefs that I was unloved, and unlovable. And my thoughts then were that everyone that I would meet had an ulterior motive and didn't really love me, even if they said it. And so my emotions were one of, I'm not the handsome one, I'm not attractive, no one will stick and stay with me. And my actions were becoming an addict to find my numbing, my escape, and my fantasy self. Okay, next slide. And what we do now, and again, I've worked in the field for 30 years. I'm semi-retired now, but I'm in the phase of our work where I'm really training people to facilitate our curriculum too, training people to work with this model that we've been working with for so many years. So the book that I held up is really the tool. And we provide training of staff in homeless shelters, in social workers, in outreach work, in rehabs, anywhere and everywhere. And when I train, for instance, I'm speaking right now from Wings of Inspiration Recovery Center in North Riding. As often as possible, I live where I'm training. So I've done extensive work at Tower of Life homeless shelter in Krugersdorp, and I live in the shelter with the guys. And then I assist in the launch when everyone's training and you say, we're going to bring this on as our curriculum, I assist. I stay there, I come back, and I assist through Zoom if you want me to Zoom in once or twice a week, once or twice a month, whatever it might be. I also, because I'm certified internationally in addictions counseling, and oh, by the way, that's what got me to South Africa in the first place and got me permanent residence here. I make myself available for case consult or any questions that come up. We also do have an intake and progress model tool that you can use the same intake application and come back to it again to see the progress that people are making as they go through the curriculum. Next slide. And next slide, please, Ilsa. Yeah. And as we go through the curriculum, what's it look like? Each participant should have their own book. And it's really an exercise book with lots and lots and lots of questions that they fill out. And they should even have a journal to go deeper as they go through that. They should do the chapter's homework before they come to the class. So it's not we're throwing a topic out for discussion and no one's prepared. 90% of what we do is in group sessions, and we use one-on-ones for questions and that come up or concerns or pain. You can be leading a group and see this has really touched someone, this topic that we're talking about. And so we use one-on-ones to dig deeper. And we go at an understanding and breakthrough pace. So people often ask me, how long does it take to go through? There's 30 chapters. Is it 30 sessions? No, we go at the pace of how people are getting their understanding, their application, and their breakthroughs. And next slide. So if you look, and this is from Galatians 5:22 and 23, the fruit of the Spirit. Normally, we just read the fruit of the Spirit and don't think anything about it. But if you look at the top where it says pardon me? If you look at the top where it says self-control, that's where we meet people and we try to teach them behavior modification for self-control in many, many settings. But as guys are released and go back into their families, what we tell them is if you're struggling with your self-control, if you're struggling with your behavior, go a step down and say, has something undermined you being gentle or faithful or good or kind in your relationships with your family and your coworkers? Is something irritating your patience? What's robbing you of your peace? What's stolen your joy? And so we teach the men and women as they complete the program to walk this staircase from the bottom up. If you get your understanding of self-love and love of others, if you have joy in your heart and you're truly living in a peaceful situation with contentment, then what flows out of that is patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness, and ultimately self-control. And from an addiction standpoint, that means clean and sober. Okay, so that's my presentation, short and sweet. And Ilsa, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. And I love the beach behind you. That brings a sense of calm and peace. I love it. Okay,
Same
guys.
here. I'm not on the beach, but I like to look at me on the beach when I'm in Zooms all the time because it keeps me focused on good things.
Absolutely. Okay, now it's over to a quick question and answer sessions. If there's anybody online who would like to ask Dr. Dave something. Any questions, or are you guys so blown away you are still writing down?
If I could jump in while everybody's just thinking about it, I am sitting in North Riding right now in Gauteng. I'll be in country until the 26th of March. So you've got my contact details there. So either if you're putting your thoughts together or you're bashful in these settings to be the one to ask the first question, you can always send me a WhatsApp or what have you. I've
Oh,
also
we've
been,
got one. Kondai, over to you.
Thank you so much. Wow, we are really struggling with people with addictions in the shelter, and it's changing. We focus with homelessness, and then addiction now is popping in as a major group of our clients are becoming so addicted that we no longer focus with looking for job. We need to use another framework of how we're gonna deal with this situation because reunification on people using drugs, the process is very long. It's not just a thing you can microwave because the people have more than 30 years doing the same thing. My question comes to the framework of the Ashes to Destiny book. Is it accessible anyway? Because it's my first time to know this book.
yes, it is. It's actually, I keep a supply in Cape Town and I keep a supply in Johannesburg, and I get them printed in Paro. So even if it's something where you want a large quantity, my printer in Paro turns them around in 5 days. So, we're looking, if you consider shipping, 7 to 10 days tops to get you a large quantity of them. It's also available on Amazon in both the regular printed copy and as an ebook.
And my second, thank you so much for your answer. And I hope we can get that book because I like the steps, the 9 steps that I see there. But my other question is that how do we deal or how do we work with the clients that, because the clients, when they use medication, they use alcohol, uh, some substance, they become partly psychotic problems. And we are really normal, sober, you have a normal energy, use a peanut butter and jam, and you come to work, and how do you handle yourself with, because it's every day you have like 8 people per day, you must have session with them. So how do we have to work with this? Because we need to know to do and what not to do.
Yeah,
Expectation, yes.
I think that, and obviously this would be a more detailed answer than we have time for now, so feel free, we can talk further. But I think as a general rule of thumb, we need to make ourselves available to all people, but we also need to be cognizant of where they're at. How recently did they use? Are they still feeling the effects of the drug? Are they in withdrawal? Are they, clean and sober 30 days, but still have 8 more months of flashbacks and cravings and nightmares and drug dreams and paranoia? So we need to grow in discernment of where they're at, but our message doesn't change. As long as we're consistent with our message and what we're bringing to them and helping them find freedom and helping them find healing, then we, based on their cognitive awareness in any given session, be it group or one-on-one, you touch base the next time to see, did anything stick? Are they applying it, or did it just go in one ear and out the other? And realize that, oftentimes if it's going in one ear and out the other, we just need to accept it for what it is. If someone's even on methadone as part of their maintenance program or their medically assisted recovery program, they might just nod off and be, doing this the whole time you're holding a group session. And there's only so many times you can have somebody tap them and wake them up. I mean, they just don't have anything to give that day. And I think, the key is not taking that personally, but being able to really have patience and understand what they're going through and meet them where they're at.
Thank you so much, Doctor. God bless.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat that says, we often say that you cannot help someone who does not want to change their life. Can we do anything to get them to that first step, or do we just wait?
No, we don't just wait. We change our expectations greatly. We really downscale our expectations because often, and I run into this with moms and dads all the time. They'll come to a workshop I'm doing to train people to work with the curriculum, but they're just coming so that they learn enough to set their son right. They want their son back. They want him to come right. And, their patience is at the end. So I think the key for me, and it may sound trite, but it's deeper than it sounds when I say it. We all know you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And that fits this category. We can lead addicts to groups and sessions and counseling and this, that, but we can't make them drink. Mm-hmm. However, if you salt the horse's oats, it will be thirsty. So the key for me is, even when they're not thirsty, how can I be salt? How can our conversations have a little shake of salt on it so that a thirst develops in that person who doesn't even realize that I'm salting it so that they get a desire to come clean and sober. So it might be sneaky, but it works.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. Now, Mr. Maleka, if you are online, we are over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Are you going to be able to show my slides? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let's somehow jump to the second slide in light of time. Okay. Community-oriented substance use program, which is termed COSUP here, was established in response to growing substance use challenge in the city of Tshwane back in 2016, where the city of Tshwane, after recognizing the need for the evidence-based approach to substance use, they engaged with Department of Family Medicine in the University of Pretoria to design the model that integrates the health care and social support, which led to creation of COSUP, which we're speaking about today. Where was I? So COSUP is a joint initiative between City of Tshwane and University of Pretoria. It allows for the integration of academic research, healthcare expertise, and municipal support to address the substance use holistically. Okay, I can see already jumped to the second slide already. I think you're moving too quick. I will tell you when to move to the next one, please. Sorry. Okay. COSUP is designed around 5 key principles of COPC, which is basically the mother of COSUP. COPC is community-oriented primary healthcare. So these principles ensure that our approach is holistic, evidence-based, and is centered on the needs of the homeless and substance users. We begin by analyzing local health needs, systems, which you can see there as number one. And then mostly number two, which is comprehensive services. That's what COSAP do. It offers more than just substance use. Our services include harm reduction, primary health care, mental health support, social assistance, and integration programs. By addressing social determinants of health, we aim to improve the long-term outcome of this community, of these homeless and substance users. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so this is just the objectives. If you look at our COSAP's objectives, it is to create an inclusive and enabling environment that is non-stigmatizing, as we know. Our communities, as homeless, is like they cannot go anywhere without being stigmatized. So COSAP create a safer environment for them. It promotes health, prevent, detect, manage illnesses, rehabilitate, and integrate into families when the correct time comes. We improve the quality of life of substance user and the substance and homeless homeless and substance user, their families and the communities they live in. Let's move to the next. So the sites are. Our sites are distributed we've got 7 regions in the city of Tshwane. So you can see we only exist in region 1, 3, 4, and 6. But region 1 has got 4 sites, which reaches out to region 2. And we also have region 4 that has got 4 sites. It also reaches out to region 5, which you can see we don't have like a stable site in there. And then we also have region 6, which covers region 7 as well. So by so doing, all the sites, all the regions of Tshwane are basically covered, and so all the sites remain covered. Okay, thanks. Can you move to the next one? Okay, that's just a layout of where subsites are located. So by looking at those black dots, that's where the core subsites are. You can see around them there are blue dots, which are clinics. So most of our sites, some of them are either in the clinics, in the community clinics, or somewhere in close proximity to the clinics to facilitate the care coordination. So people that we see at COSAP, if they have to be accessing services from the clinic, they get them in close proximity. Can move to the next one. So all the sites are equipped with the personnel that we see there: clinical associate, social worker, care coordinator, peer educators, information officers, pharmacists. So all these sites, they are overseen by a family physician, because clinical associates, they work under the supervision of the doctors. So all the sites are overseen by the family physicians, which support all the time. They come on regular schedule, or otherwise anytime when they are requested by the team on site. Let's move. Yeah, that's basically how COSAP from the minute we engage with the patient to the last. So those are just step by steps, and until the patients are maybe stable enough, they can be integrated into the families. They can be sent to for life skills. They can be linked, for skill development, basically. We can move to the next one. Okay, we know traditionally that our health facilities or the clinics, they're disease centered. So at COSAP, we recognize the substance use is not just a medical issue. It deeply connects a person's social, emotional. Treating only the symptom, we treat the person as a whole, considering their housing situation, mental health, and social connections, and their financial instabilities. Let's move. Okay. So we further recognize that the health is shaped by community, not just by individual choices or medical treatments. We provide harm reduction, psychosocial services, wound care. All this we do them in an environment which is familiar to the patient, like where the patient stays. Like we don't really require the patient to come to us. We actually reach out to these people in their communities where they are more comfortable without feeling stigmatized at all. We work with the local NGOs, religious organizations, and local businesses to create a sustainable support networks. Peer support and engagement, we've got individuals with lived experiences, which play a vital role in outreach and mentorship of the communities that we're dealing with, particularly homeless and substance users. Let's move on. So those are the services that are rendered on site. Medical examination, which is general health care, which includes illness screening, linkage to care, needle and syringe program, needle and syringe exchange programs, and OST, which is opioid substitution therapy, newly termed as opioid agonist therapy. Let's move on. Okay. COSAP plays a central role in addressing the substance use among vulnerable population. So we focus mostly at the homeless hotspots. We identify, if you remember, the first principles that we shared earlier. So as part of identifying where the need is actually located. So we identify and serve individuals in areas with high homelessness. We follow community-oriented primary care approach, integrated prevention, treatment, and care. We ensure individuals receive right care at the right time, linking them appropriately to the services that they need. You will see, second, we also have WOPOT, which WOPOT and some multi-sectoral AIDS unit. So they play integral role in the street medicine, which is rendered by COSAP and other stakeholders. So these teams, they help us in mobilizing the patients around where we go. They help us connect the patients with the healthcare services. After seeing these patients, it's like CHWs from these teams, which is WOPOT, Ward-Based Outreach Team, and MSAMU. They help the patients to connect with the healthcare services, ensuring they receive necessary treatment. Like if we saw and referred them, they are the ones that will be linking them with those particular. We don't just refer and leave them, but after writing the letters, these guys will be the ones that are taking them hand in hand to where they should be going. Effective street medicine requires collaboration amongst multi-stakeholders, which include, as I just said, MSAMO, WOPOT, other NGOs that are I mentioned at the bottom there. In summary, I would say street medicine is a coordinated effort which involves COSAP, outreach teams, and various stakeholders to improve health outcomes for the marginalized people, in this case, homeless and substance users. Let's move to the next one. The diagram that I did here, the aim was to just illustrate how the street medicine is coordinated. At the center of operations, you can see is COSAP, which is mainly guided by a clinical associate who oversees the medical interventions, care coordination, and the linkage to services. Two critical teams working alongside COSAP street medicine are WOPOT and MSAMO. WOPOT, as I said, mobilizes and assists in conducting screening and facilitate patient follow-ups. MSAMO also, which is okay, it's HIV based basically. So what they do, they also still do the same as it's like street medicine remains incomplete if you go out without any of these two things. One of these two things should form integral part of that particular outreach if you want street medicine to be effective. If you look on the top right corner, or should I say left corner, where we said hotspot champs, there's a saying that keeps saying nothing about us without us. So on the hotspot, we identify people that we say they are champions. So these are the individuals from the hotspots who play a key role in identifying and referring people that needs the healthcare services. So basically, these people, because they live in these communities of healthcare, and this hotspot under the bridges on the parks, so they have our contacts as street medicine team. So should they encounter anything that maybe they feel like cannot be assisted, they usually contact us and then make us aware of that. So we looking down on the down right, we also have got stakeholders which complete street medicine as well. So if we go out, usually we'll be having to have at least some of these stakeholders, which include VESA-HI, TB HIV, PEN, and the local clinics and other local NGOs wherever we are. I mean, local stakeholders wherever we are working. So those are the ones that actually complete the street medicine to make it more effective. Can move to the next one. So here, I didn't say much. I just put pictures. So this is, I would say, it's more of the successes or few of the stories that maybe can be told as to how COSAP work. You're looking at the top right, you would see it's like we seeing a child in a very, very remote area where clinics are not able to be sort of reaching out. So we examining the child in the car. In the middle there, you see during the COVID vaccines, we also made sure that this type of communities are actually covered. We reached out to them. That was along the river there where we went. And the child in the middle there, that's a child that was born by a homeless, undocumented person, which actually struggled to get ambulance. So basically, we arrived just on time to be able to deliver the child on the street. And on the left side, you will see we actually doing wound care right at the that's on the river coast. It's like the people are staying there and they stay there. It's like they just won't go to clinic. So reaching out to them help us to be able to identify and assist them there. Other one on the wheelchair was someone that is actually his movement depends on the wheelchair, and he wouldn't get wheelchair anywhere. But which, with the help of other stakeholders that we have in the inner city, we managed to secure him a wheelchair. Down there, you will see during winter time, we're able to actually even give them clothes through available NGOs. And otherwise, also the other child that's in the middle there was also one of them. Those that were born by the homeless people on the streets at some time back, maybe in 2018. And group there leaning around the car. So we used to call it a mental health day, mental health Wednesdays, where we would go and take those that are in remote areas and are unable to follow up by themselves to the clinic because of their mental state. So we would go and try take them hand by hand. The two ladies you see on the sides are CHWs from Wobot. So we work with these people and then try and get hospital, open them file, be sure that they are seen, and then take them back to where they stay.
1 minute.
Let's move on. Basically, that's just inclusion criteria for COSAP, especially for the OST. Let's move or cut me. And yeah, those are the we also offering psychosocial services, which include screening and brief motivational interviewing individuals, skill development, which is offered by also the surrounding NGOs, which we have in the inner city. Let's move. Okay. Substance use and homelessness. Substance use, homelessness, and social exclusion often limit opportunities for joy, creativity, and social integration. So recreational activities, as you see up there, helps these people's mental well-being, rebuild their social connections, and offer sense of purpose beyond homelessness and substance. So we just actually give them sense of belonging by offering them this type of services where they come and exercise. Let's move on. those are just other services that are offered by street medicine. Let's move. Okay, so we also offer training for other institutions, for other NGOs around the city, for the students, postgraduate students, social workers, and student health. Let's move. Just few of the challenges: funding, access to COSAP in the remote areas, as I mentioned, that we try to reach out, but we still may not be doing enough, but we are trying to reach out. Access to healthcare for our homeless people, stigma and discrimination, SAPS and Metropolis confiscating needles and medication when they have, or actually even moving them around without caring whether they are their own chronic illnesses. It's like, so those are the challenges that we have. Let's move.
Thank you, sir. Sorry,
Yeah, that's
our
the last slide,
time has
basically.
run out.
That's the last slide, basically.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I think if anybody have questions for Mr. Maleka, can you just write them in the chat and we'll get round to it when we have our panel discussion. Ronnie, I'm going to give straight over to you.
Morning, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ronnie, and I am a former addict, and I am now branch manager at MES, where I try to help other people, which I'm privileged and blessed to do. So I've started a program a couple of years ago called Restoration Addiction Discipleship Program, RAD, where we really try to restore the addict through discipleship. Just go to the next slide, please. Just talking about our methodology, and very briefly, our program, is designed to assist individuals struggling with addiction to achieving liberation from their self-destructive tendencies. So we uphold the belief that the principles found in biblical scripture, along with the sacrifice of Christ, can facilitate this kind of freedom. If we look at our theoretical framework, next slide, and if I just talk a little bit around that, and I'll use some scripture reference as well. But whenever I sort of like interview or talk to somebody who wants to do a program, I kind of do an exercise and I write on a piece of paper. I write the word addiction, and I ask them, okay, so what comes to mind when you see that word? And they would say that drugs, alcohol, eating disorders, porn, self-harm, etc., and the list goes on. And when I ask them, so on this list, what would you say on this paper? What would you say is your problem, or you're struggling with? And they might say, well, I'm struggling with drugs and gambling, or with alcohol and porn, or something like that. And then I'd say to them, well, that's not your struggle. That is your expression. That's how you choose to express. What are you expressing? Well, you're expressing your addiction through these various activities or substances, which is very interesting to look at because it challenges a lot of popular ideas out there. But from a biblical perspective, we look at addiction, and because the problem is addiction, it's not the substance. I mean, that's just an expression. So biblically speaking, addiction is a worship disorder. And so it's a condition of the heart. And so I go to a passage like James chapter 1, verse 13 through 15. And in that passage, it says the following. It says, let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, becomes birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. So we have, so what we try to teach the guys on our program is that there is a responsibility, and the responsibility, they need to take responsible for the choice that they make, because it is clear from biblical perspective that we have a choice that we make, and that choice takes us down a certain path, and there's consequences attached to that. And so a passage in James really brings that out, where the desire to self-destruct lies within my own heart, and I made a decision based on that. And then another passage that we look at is Romans chapter 1, verse 21 through 23. And I can read that passage as well, just quickly for you. It says the following. It says, though they knew God, they did not glorify him as God or show him gratitude. Instead, their thinking became worthless, and their senseless hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man, birds, four-footed animals, and reptiles. So you see, our understanding, our belief is that our hearts are idol factories, and we create these idols and we bow down to them. And addiction is one of those idols that we bow down to and we worship. And so the addict, when they're using drugs, or whether they're using alcohol, or whether they're busy with porn or gambling or whatever it is, it's merely an expression of a desire that lies within their heart. So what we've got to deal with is actually the heart. It's a heart condition. And so Romans 12, verse 1 to 2 is really impactful in my life as I came through addiction. And it talks about becoming a living sacrifice and not being conformed any longer to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I realized that in order for me to change, for me to become restored, I need to return back to God, the very God that I turned away from when I made the decision. Because in all addicts, in the addict's head, in his mindset, it's my world, my way. I will determine what gives me joy, what makes me feel peace or happiness, or makes me feel powerful, or what sorts out issues in my life. So we made a decision to turn away from God to these substances or activities to do what God intended to do for us. And so really we need to come back to God. And so we need to become a living sacrifice. We need to die to ourselves and accept the sacrifice that God made for us and embrace it in order to become restored. Now, a beautiful story for me that plays out the life of the addict is really the story of the prodigal son, who wished the death of his father because he wanted his inheritance. And with that hard heart, he went to a faraway land, went and squandered everything on promiscuous living and everything, and then eventually ended up in a pigsty looking after pigs, a Jewish boy on a Gentile farm looking after pigs, unheard of in that time. But there he is, and he's dying of hunger. He's not being paid for his labor, and he realizes in that moment, if I stay here, I'm going to die. The servants in my father's house, they have food to eat. They've got a place of their own. They get taken care of better than I am. And he has that enlightened moment where he comes to his senses, and he gets up and he runs off he runs back to his father's house. The question that I like to ask, especially when I'm dealing with parents, and I'm dealing with people that are concerned for the addict and they want to help, but they're not really helping, because they don't understand what help looks like. I'd like to say to them, well, what if somebody had brought that young man a piece of bread and a glass of water every day? Would he have come to his senses? Would he have gone back home to his father's house? And I think we can all agree that no, he wouldn't have, because what brought him to his senses was that he was starving, he was dying of hunger. And so there's a difference between helping and enabling, and we've got to be very careful what that line is. When we go to the next slide, please.
1 minute, Ronnie.
Yes, sorry. So if we look at some psychological insights and stuff, so from a Christian perspective, recovery can be viewed as a process of developing secure attachments to God, replacing unhealthy dependencies such as addiction with love and acceptance. The approach emphasizes fostering connections with God and the community, allowing individuals to refrain from their life stories reframe their life stories through the lens of God's grace, redemption, and purpose. If I can just go to to our material that we use. It's we use a book called The Crossroads, and I don't know if it's in focus there, but yeah, it's The Crossroads, and that's taken from a book written by Edward T. Welsh called Addiction's a Banquet in the Grave. And it's really a 10 steps out of addiction. We use the Christian adaptation of the 12 steps by Saul Selby, and then various life skill topics and group discussions in our program. We believe that there's a practical aspect, so we have works of service, daily responsibilities, and work readiness programs. When we talk about our assessments, we obviously assess the desperation levels. We look at medical history, family orientations, and our program is a 9-month live-in program. Our impact and why it works. Well, we believe in 5 pillars that need to be in place. So a person needs to have a safe environment to live in, be employed, have accountability partners, be actively involved in the church, and have a mentor. And then, really what it is Christ is the power in our program. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And it is the sacrifice that he made, and he took upon himself my iniquities, my sins, and he restored my life, and I'm free from that. I've been free since 1996, and I give all glory to him. Thanks. That's all.
Holy moly. Thank you guys so much. Our next part of the program is going to be a panel discussion between our 3 speakers, moderated by Raymond. 2 questions that has come up is Pumi, that it's asking Mr. Maleka, who are the key role players that is needed to start this kind of intervention that he spoke about, as she is, it would seem, at a municipality near him. Michaela would like to know about how do we help people with gambling addiction, or that's from Zama at the Dennis Hurley Center. So Raymond, here are some of the the places where you can start with a panel discussion.
Cool, good. So thank you very much on behalf of those who are present to our 3 speakers. We did want to keep you short so there was time for this panel discussion because the interaction between the 3 of you is really interesting. So I'm going to take the questions, and please keep posting questions in the chat room, but I'm going to take questions and just broaden them out so that they can be responded to by all of our speakers. So in relation to that question from the person in the municipality, who do you need to start such an intervention? Can I broaden that question to all 3 of you? Who do you find are the useful partners in your work? Because one of the notions of this network is that we can achieve more by working together. So what kind of organizations do you find are useful partners in your work? Prince, starting with you.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you. I think the most important role players or stakeholders that will play critical role in getting the entire goal. I think the municipality plays a critical role. Local clinics, they really need a lot of buy-in because they without them taking care of all these chronic illnesses from within this population becomes a very, very difficult thing to do. Mental health care teams, they are very, very important, of which actually very, very difficult to get hold of, but they would play a critical role in addressing the needs for this particular group.
Thank you. Ronnie, anything to add?
Yeah, I think for me in the work that I do, most critical partners would be the local church, because I find that there is a support structure that is developed for the recovering addict within that context, and then also forming a good partnership with your local clinic for medical support, and then also I've got good working relations with prosecutors in the courts and that, because Sometimes there is an understanding needed when dealing with somebody who might have been committing crime, but there's underlying issues, and we try to help them that they don't unnecessarily send somebody to prison who actually needs a recovery program. Yeah, so those are some of the critical, people I work with. Yeah.
David, obviously you've been working both here and in the States. Who do you find are the useful partners in your work?
And I'd ditto what the guys have said so far, so I'll just add other pieces to it. So the family of the addict involved. It's important that while an addict is going through a transformation, and often a deepening of their faith walk, that someone is working with the families, so that when they return home, it's not that the families are still at this level and now this guy's on fire and ready to set the house on fire. This is especially crucial if we're working with someone who their marriage is still waiting for them. And so, for instance, if the man was the addict and now he's become the man of God and he returns home to be the head of the household, but for the previous 15 years, the woman is the one who did the checkbook. The woman is the one who gave him a weekly stipend, so to speak, almost like an allowance because he could never keep track of money. And he's the one that sold all the possessions. So the family is key. And what's also key is that the people who are going to be continuing the care, not just the aftercare people, but truly that they become a continuum of care, that they understand the program that the client is going through, and that they're not teaching a totally different set of information so that contradiction and confusion sets into the person when they begin their step back into the community.
Thank you. Thanks, David. The person who asked the question about Nelson Mandela Bay, you'll find there's an answer in the chat room. One person's Numusa, lovely to see you here. One person asked a question about success rates. So can I broaden that question to how do you measure success? How do you measure success? And then given whatever measure of success you use, what would you call your success rate? And I appreciate this is a highly contentious question. Ronnie, your smile is biggest. Start with you.
Yeah. How do you measure success? I suppose Nope would consider me a success of their program. That's where I came to find Christ, and that was, I don't know, 28 years ago. I think if I look at success and measuring it, it's more realistic for me to say we've got an 80% success rate in people finishing our program. It becomes very difficult to try and track a person's life after they've left, unless they contact us to say, "Hey, listen, thank you, we're doing well," and it becomes really difficult to try and track somebody's life. And for how long do you track that person's life to say that it's success? Um, so you can find success in short things, like, for instance, somebody becomes employed. That's a moment of success. They find reunification with a family. That's a moment of success. Um, but in terms of, they'll never go back to using, or, those are very hard to measure. So I like to just say we have a success rate in terms of we finish our program well, and we try to encourage the guys as they leave, and we try to look at those little things like become employed, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, but it's a very difficult question. Yeah.
Prince, on your side.
Thanks. Like he just said, success can be maybe seen in different ways. But say from COSAP, we're looking at, say, people that are on OST. So we consider them successful if they manage to stay at least for the minimum of 6 months. In general, the program success is measured on the amount of people that they can retain, or including those that are being went off. So the only ones that will say they are not successful is the ones that eventually relapse along the way without being able to be retrieved back into the program. So other things is that, as he mentions, the ones that we manage to reintegrate with their families, the ones that we manage to get them off the street and put them in the shelters. So that's how we end up saying at least we're succeeding when we getting that at least being done. Thanks.
Thank you. And David, and again, is there a difference between how success is viewed in the States versus in South Africa?
No, it's pretty similar. And, I don't say this as the rude or arrogant American, but South Africa often gets things sort of 5 or 10 years after they've been tried and tested and stirred in the pot a little bit for a few years before America begins to export it. So I'm not coming as that expert, and apologize for that if some of you have been on the receiving end of some of that American arrogance. But the typical measure in the recovery community is the person still clean and sober 12 months later? And they only measure those people who've successfully completed the program. They disregard all the people who've dropped out, who've left early. And so it's statistical manipulation in a sense, we have a model to use that. We have evidence-based information. We also have our assessment tool that we developed to be used in the prisons in the States and here in South Africa does a pre-treatment assessment, a mid-treatment assessment, and a post-treatment assessment with the exact same questions. And then we have weights and measures for the subjective answers. The objective answers are pretty easy, but the subjective ones, you'd need to come up with your own scale. But we measure where things have grown, where they're still leading at risk thoughts or behaviors, and use that as a tool to predict ahead. But when I work with families and, they just want to know, is my son or daughter getting right? Are they going to come right? And but they ask, what's the statistic for, all your work for the past 30 years with 30,000 addicts? And what I say is, look, for everyone who comes right, there's at least 100 members of their family, their friends, their current network whose lives have changed because this one's been transformed. And that goes up and down generations also. And if you look at a child born and daddy's in prison, and he comes out of prison totally transformed and on fire in his faith, that touches his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. So which is the most important measurement, I guess, for me? And for me, it's generational, because that's how we change our communities and our countries.
Thank you. And linked in with the question of success, Sister Kathy asked about relapse. So are there key issues, key triggers, key warning signs that you look for in terms of relapse? Let me stick with you, David.
There are, and we've got several chapters in the program to look at them. And I personally have in all my work, and this is controversial because it comes against what SAMHSA in the US what they say. And that is, I differentiate between slip and relapse. So a slip is, I've used, but sort of after the first use or the first sip of alcohol or the first evening, I smack myself on the head and say, what the world am I doing? And I cry out for help before I get down this slippery slope. To people in the community, in this business, that's counted as a relapse. To me, it's not. I don't send someone back to square one and say, now you only have 1 day clean starting tomorrow, because we've grown in wisdom, we've grown in strength, we've grown in experience. So everyone has different triggers. And so we make sure we we work on the triggers. We use biblical examples of building altars where, you know, what pile of stones would you make where God showed up undeniably in the midst of your addiction and saved you? And we use signposts saying, you know, don't go this way, you know, go this way and trouble's coming. We listen to that silent voice of our teacher who walks through us. So we build things in that people can work with, because the temptation's always going to be there. And if the wound is not healed, it's going to sting. And we as you remember from the Russian dolls, we work very strongly at the emotional wound that's inside that has become a core value, stronger than their faith, stronger than their principles that their parents taught them. And if that thing's still just trickling a little bit inside of a hemorrhage, then it's almost like a time bomb, and that needs to get healed before that time bomb goes off in a relapse.
Ronnie, anything to add on relapse from your experience?
I think there are people who have weak moments, and they have you know, challenges in those areas, and one has to act with a measure of grace. I don't think one should make it. You know, I was in a support group meeting once. I won't say which one, but and then one of the guy that was hosting it or leading it said, you know, relapse is part of the program. And one of the other participants puts his hand up and he says, "Well, I need one of those." And I thought, you don't want to promote it, you know, it happens. You don't want it to happen. So that's why I think, for me, the 5 pillars that we put in place, you can position yourself in such a way that it becomes harder for you to actually fall into that trap. It's never, it's never a case of, I will never fall in the trap, because, you know, it's when you think you stand, that's when you fall. So, and there's ways to measure where a person's at as well. So it's about the support structure that you have around you, and that support structure becomes vitally important in the development. I mean, recovery for me is a minimum 3 to 4 year process before you can get to a place where you can say, okay, well, I can now be trusted to make responsible decisions in my life. And for me, it took 5 years to get there, but I have to learn the hard way. But I think for me, a good measure is when I say to one of our participants, your mentor needs to manage your funds for the next 4 years. And if that person does not give his bank card and his ID and everything to his mentor, it already says to me there's a warning. You know, I need to look out for this person. They are heading for a fall. And so there are ways to measure and to see in attitude and in thinking and you know, where somebody's at. But there are things you can put in place that gives them a chance to not have to go back, that they can develop and grow and live a life in freedom.
Thank you. We've got time for one more question. So Prince, I'll skip over for you on this question and ask you to lead on the next one. So clearly this seminar is about addiction. It's being hosted by the National Homeless Network. So everyone in the room either works with or has a personal experience of homelessness, and it's within that context that we're looking at addiction. So can I ask the three of you, to what degree does homelessness make tackling addiction different or more difficult? And are there ways in which it might make it easier? Prince, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think homelessness and substance use, they interchangeably affect one another. So when one is homeless, the risks of them using the substance remains high. When one is substance users, even when they're at home, the risk of living on the street becomes also high. So both of them, they actually affect one another.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, I think for me, the key with working in homeless shelters is whether it's an emergency shelter or whether it's a shelter that has long-term housing available, long-term rooms available for the people to step up from emergency into the next level of sort of sober living areas that's still part of the shelter or not. Your program, they're choosing to get out of their cell. In the homeless shelter, they may choose to come to begin the program, but if it's an emergency shelter, they may not be always available, and they're more transient, and you don't know where to contact them. They may not have, an place to SMS. So it can be challenging from that perspective. But it also, again, if depending on the structure of the homeless shelter, if there's structure in place for the guys to grow in different steps, and if there's partnering with sober living houses and as a next step, or partnering with people from social work or community development, you've got a really good network to work with.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Yeah. So I can add to that, and I also want to say that for me, somebody being on the street, it is a little bit easier, I think, in terms of the fact that they've lost so much, they've lost everything basically to be there. I mean, I remember it's only when my enabling network they closed their doors and I ended up on the street. That's when my life changed, because I didn't have many options left. But I want to say this, and I don't know if David and Prince have come across this, but all the participants that I've come across on my program and guys that I've been on, whether it's been in a rehab, prison, or whatever, without exception, whether they come out of a prestigious school or whether they come off the street, every single one of them suffered from absent fathers, and without exception. And I think that is a key influence in somebody making decisions that eventually self-destruct in their life. So there's an area that I mean, I don't think anybody asked a question around that, but so there's no real difference between the guy that comes out of a wealthy home or one that comes out of poverty. I think there is a common denominator, which is you must probably find there is daddy issues, and it's contributed to the decisions that they've made. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. We're about to go to closing remarks. Can I ask each of the three of you for just one final sentence, particularly some words of encouragement? There are a lot of people in this webinar who are working in this field, and as you know, it's an area where one can quite often lose hope. So some words of encouragement would be fantastic. While you're thinking of that, can I remind everyone who's here, if you want to suggest any areas of for future webinars, then please put that in the chat room, or you can email me. You all have my email address because I think you all received emails from me. So let us know what ideas you have, either themes or of speakers. Some other great questions in the chat room, but the question of harm reduction versus rehab, that's a whole seminar all on itself. So we won't even open that subject at this stage, I'm afraid, because we won't be able to do it justice. So let me turn back to our three speakers and ask you for your final words in alphabetical order, starting with David.
Okay, first, thanks for the invitation. I really enjoyed this time and hope to get to know more of you personally in this network. It really has been an encouragement to me. I think just a final thought that I'm asked all the time is, do addicts really change? When do I start trusting them again? And I think, resoundingly, I say, yes, addicts can change. And they not only change, they can experience radical transformation to the point that you don't even recognize them anymore. They are so on a positive, healed, and whole mode. So don't give up hope on them. And I know it's a struggle to be the carrier of hope or the person inspiring them with hope. But I think one of the things we each need to check ourselves if you have loved ones caught up in addiction, and that is, don't fall into some of the things that we may have heard other places that really don't fit the love that the addicts need. So one example I'll just give in parting, and that is when we say you have to re-earn my trust. Trust is not earned. Trust is given. And trust is a condition of my heart. And I understand people can get to the point where I don't want to risk heartache one more time. I don't want to risk heartache heartbreak one more time because my loved one's broken my heart so many times. But if you're in that state, how long did they need to be clean to re-earn it? 6 months, 6 years, 6 decades? So very often we put the onus and the stigma on the addict when we really need to check ourselves to see, are we at a point to welcome them and give them our trust?
Thank you. Prince.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity for coming and presenting and to the audience that listen to us. In closing, I would love everyone that works with the addicted individuals and homeless to say, addiction is a chronic relapsing disease. So whenever you are assisting these people, do not accept or expect expect them to change overnight. So please enjoy them, work with them, and support them all along. At any point, if they relapse, don't give up on them. Hold their hand, walk forward, and then make sure that the families also understand the issues behind addiction, and then they can offer a consistent support to these individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ronnie.
Yes, thank you very much on my side as well for this opportunity. I don't know why I'm on this panel. I'm not qualified, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. I want to say that addiction is not a disease and a sickness from which there's no known cure. Addiction can be overcome. There is hope beyond hope. And I would encourage anybody that is working. I mean, we in the homeless field, we come across addiction all the time. Not everybody is suitable for every single program. And some people take longer to get to that place. Always be ready to listen, always be available to walk with somebody. And you don't know if you're the 20th person that eventually helps that person to break that cycle of destruction in their lives. So addiction can be overcome and people can live a free life. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Just to let you all know, we will follow up with all of you with an email giving you access to the recording of this webinar. And we'll get permission from David, Prince, and Ronnie to share their email addresses so that you can follow up with them directly as well. Let me hand over to Ilse for closing remarks, and also a big thank you to Ilse for organizing this. This is really fantastic. It's the best, I think the most organized webinar we've ever had. So well done to Ilse and John and all those who've made it happen. Ilse, over to you.
Thank you so much, Captain, my captain. So Carl Jung said, every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. So I think the stigmatization, and that came up the whole time today, Ronnie said, all walks of life, everyone, even some of us. So I think the key points that came out today were understand the addict, the emotional wounds, the mind of an addict. There must be in our approaches process and measurements. I think the pre, mid, and post assessments have come out good. Partnerships are important, and the continuum of care, we need to also focus on that. And I think to end off what Dr. Dave said, that addiction is way bigger in what we are trying to address. It's walking in destiny, not just in sobriety. So once again, thank you to our incredible speakers for your time and expertise. Thank you to U-Turn for hosting the webinar for us. Thank you, John, for helping us with the technical side today and the slides. And thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you for having a learning spirit, and thank you for the difference that you make in your space every day. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for believing that change is possible. And thank you for loving people back into wholeness. Have a great week further, and we'll see you again. And watch out our communication, our next webinar. And remember, please, your topics or suggestions on speakers in the chat, and we'll see you soon. It's 11:30. We made it. Thank you so much for your patience. Have a great time, people. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.